morning, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. Really glad you could join me today out here in the vegetable garden. Well, it's still early spring here in Pennsylvania, zone 6. In fact, right now it's 41 degrees. And so, you know, it's a little chilly out here, a little bit of wind. I love wearing these flannel shirts though, you know, this is great flannel shirt weather. But anyhow, today I wanted to share with you some tips and ideas on how to install a low tunnel hoop house in your vegetable garden. So thanks for joining me today. If you take a look behind me, you can see I have 3 different areas where I installed some low tunnel hoop houses. Underneath them I have some of my kale and my spinach and also my broccoli right here alongside my edge of my garden. But anyhow, the idea of a low tunnel hoop house is to protect those little baby plants that you just installed in your garden. You know, Mother Nature can, you know, provide a lot of heat, a lot of wind, you know, a lot of rain, and so it's good to protect those little plants. I also grow all my plants in my raised beds, and yesterday we just had a heavy rainstorm, and so those baby plants were just protected, being they were raised up from above the ground. They didn't get drowned out or anything. You know, low tunnel hoop houses are typically anywhere from like 4 feet wide to 3 feet high. You know, the other option is a high tunnel hoop house. You know, they can be 8 to 10 feet high or more. They can be 10, 12 feet wide. They can be 20 feet long, 30 feet long. You know, some of them are much even larger than that. And they're very expensive. You got to worry about winds blowing them over. But the low tunnel hoop houses are very affordable. That's why I like using them in my garden. I have the you know, I grow a lot of the brassica plants here in our garden, and the cabbage looper worm, you know, that white butterfly you see flying around, lays eggs under these leaves, and they develop into these little cabbage worms that just devastate and destroy your plants and cause disease. We also have the aphids here that we have to worry about. So protecting those little baby plants in your garden is something is to be proactive in your garden. So I end up buying my row covers from, it's called Rainflow. They're located in Lancaster, PA. I end up buying a 11-foot by 500-foot roll from them, and it lasts me at least 4 years. It's a 56-ounce cloth. It's called Pro 19. It allows 85% of your light to shine through the cloth. And what's nice about that, and especially when I grow my broccoli, is it does protect the broccoli from some of that hot summer sun, you know. But the cover tan, it's also a floating row cover that you can really just lay it right on your plants. It's light enough, and your plants just grow right up under it. But I always recommend to provide and build a low tunnel hoop house in your garden. But you know, for me here, the low tunnel hoop houses also keep the deer out of my garden beds. It protects it from squirrels, you know, your dog or your cat. I mean, Bailey of course walks through my garden beds, but he's only 8 pounds, but he doesn't hurt my garden beds or anything, my plants. He does eat my kale plants once in a while, but it's really well worth the time and money up front to be proactive in your garden, so you're not worrying about, you know, adding chemicals or whatever to your plants once the pests start destroying your plants. Installing these row covers on your garden also allows you to pack out your plants earlier in the season and also later in the fall, because it does offer some protection from the frost. And so that's another beneficial way to have them in your garden. I often have people ask me about, well, how do you water through them? Well, the nice thing about these low tunnel hoop houses and the row covers is it allows the air to pass through, the wind pass through, and also the rain. So you can, I just water right through with my hose, you know, just water right through them. And you know, I mentioned earlier that we had that heavy rain, and so, you know, they also protect those little plants from those heavy rains. So anyhow, why don't we go over there and we'll talk about the installation of these low tunnel hoop houses. It's something really easy to do. So follow me along. So I have here the roll of my cover tan that I ended up purchasing from Rainflow. You can see it's just a nice, it's actually a non-woven polyester, and like I said earlier, it's 56 ounces. It's called Pro 19. But here on my raised bed here, my low tunnel hoop house is 4 foot wide by 14 foot 6 long, and I have these spaced around 3 feet apart. I would say you could space your hoops anywhere around 3 to 4 feet apart. Probably works pretty well. I've even had people say, or viewers say, that they've gone out to the dollar stores and bought hula hoops and maybe cut them in half and use smaller ones. But you do want to make sure your cover tan's wide enough, or your row cover's wide enough. You need at least maybe 6 to 8 inches at least on both sides of your hoops to make sure you can weigh it down. You can see I use a lot of brick here to weigh mine down. I had a lot of brick left over on a construction job one time, and so I line the bricks up like soldiers, you know. And you really want to make sure you have them anchored down, especially well anchored on the prevailing side, because yesterday we had a lot of high winds, and so this as well as I had this row cover anchored down, it did end up blowing off the one side. So that's why it's got a little bit of mud on it. It was laying in the mud there, but I was able to add a few more bricks to it. But so anyhow, when you build your hoop house, you have two options, at least I'm providing here, as far as hoops. Now what you see here on this bed here, I used 1/2 inch rigid conduit, and you just bend these into a 4 foot diameter hoop. I actually took a piece of 3/4 inch plywood and cut a radius on it using my jigsaw, and then spaced blocks out about 1 inch from it, you know, around the perimeter, and then I was able to just bend this hoop around it. And you can get these at, you know, your home centers for maybe $3 or more, a little bit more. And you know, you just stick them in the soil about 8-10 inches. So it's really something easy to do. But what's even easier is these PVC hoops. You can buy 1/2 inch rigid PVC hoops. They're about $3 a piece. You know, the prices seem to be changing all the time on this conduit, but it's 1/2 inch in diameter. I end up cutting a foot off these are 10-foot lengths, so is the rigid piping, but I cut off a foot off the end of the 10 foot, so this is actually 9 feet. That way the hoop's not quite so high. And then in order to hold this PVC hoop into the soil, you can buy a 1/2 inch diameter, 24 inch long piece of metal rebar. And so you just drive about half of this length into the soil, and then obviously it's going to just fit up inside the hoop. So you just bend it up and over it. It's really something easy to do. Behind me I have a small hoop house I have covering my spinach. You know, and these hoop houses just provide a nice micro environment inside these inside, and my plants just thrive under these. You know, when bugs attack your plants, they become diseased, you know, so they don't grow as large and healthy, and they don't produce as much. And so, as I said earlier, it's really worth the small amount of time and effort to, in the beginning of your season, to be proactive rather than reactive. So why don't we take a little closer look at these hoop houses that I installed. We'll take a look at this one and then the two in the back. Sometimes it's nice too if you have a helper with you, and especially to maybe put on the row cover. My wife helps me put the row covers on sometimes. Good morning, Bailey. How you doing, boy? So let's go up over there and we'll take a look at these other two. This one here on my right is where I used my PVC hoops. And yeah, they're pretty secure. This is where I have my spinach under here. And this one under here is where I have my kale. My kale plants get almost 30 inches high at least, and you know, they just thrive under these row covers, and it's so nice not having to worry about insects, you know, harmful insects on your plants. But it's basically like a fleece. They remind me of the old Conestoga wagons. And so they just do an excellent job protecting these little plants that you just installed in your garden. You can probably also purchase these row covers from your local garden supplier or home center. Some people have purchased these, you know, you can search online. Some people have gotten these off of eBay. And so they're, you know, today in the garden world, they've really become popular for people to use in your garden. Well, anyhow, I hope this video was able to give you some tips and ideas on how to install a low tunnel hoop house in your vegetable garden. If you have any questions or comments about this video, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And you can also visit us at PlantSmartLiving.com. And there you can learn more about gardening and also how you can reclaim and restore your health by adopting a whole food, plant-based, vegan lifestyle. Well, anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful day today. So until next time, this is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.